Welcome back to week 4 in our course, Followership, the Other Side of Leadership. This week, we are going to start looking at how leaders can determine unique values that are both spoken and perceived within their followers. But first, I want to close out our thoughts on bad or toxic leadership. By understanding traits that define bad and toxic leadership, we can also begin to shift that awareness to a more positive and genuine interest in followers. So when we see the challenging traits in bad leadership and courageous followership is difficult, what do we do? And what options are available to followers? Earlier, we talked about the needs of followers in these situations and how issues like security, stability, and safety really do cause many followers to remain silent. However, when a follower finally reaches a point where they can no longer remain silent, there's a question that must be asked. When and how can you confront them? Additionally, there are questions such as, when should you remain silent? When should you blow the whistle? And even, when should you make the decision to leave? In the heat of the moment, these questions would be very difficult to answer. And this is where an awareness of values begins. A follower must think about their actions and reactions before an actual toxic situation arises. So let's create a scenario where a toxic environment has been established. Leader A has established an acceptable norm of discriminatory speech toward an ethnic group of employees or followers, in which you also identify. The first step in confronting leadership is the consideration of the means to accomplish a positive outcome. This includes an awareness of the type of relationship that you have with the leader. Is it healthy enough to be able to have a discussion? Have you taken the time to know all of the facts and considerations for what you see as toxic? Is there room for more information? Have you had conversations with coworkers, not to gossip, but to explore and potentially validate your concerns while avoiding emotional responses or label? Without the facts and groundwork completed prior to a conversation regarding toxic leadership, the conversation has a high degree of likelihood to gravitate toward emotional conversations while neglecting factual information. Your responses to the facts should also be a reflection of your personal values, while also considering the similarities or differences between your values and the stated values of the organization. If there is misalignment, motives must also be considered, which is our next step. When deciding to confront toxic leadership, you must examine your motives for the courageous conversation. The first question again is, what are the facts? Do the facts merit a conversation, and can those facts be tangibly shared? Next, a self-analysis of your feelings or emotions is critical to help keep them centered on the issue and not the person. As we are dealing with toxic leadership, this is a hard distinction. However, to keep the message on point and with a higher degree of acceptance, the message must be about the issue, not the person behind the issue. So finally, we must check our motive to ensure that we are working toward a courageous conversation for the betterment of the organization or department rather than for personal gain. So again, let's walk through this. In order to have a high degree of success in a courageous conversation, we must first determine if we have the proper means to be successful. We must also consider our motives and be prepared with the facts first and emotions second. When we are confident in these areas, we can then determine the right method. Here we have some points to consider. Timing. Is the leader too busy or preoccupied to have this conversation? What is the current workload and focus? Is there time to digest the information that you are about to share? Location. Are we in a private space, yet also safe for your message to be shared? What is the current climate of the organization, department, or team? Are emotions already on edge, and will your message be heard or become background concerns to other more pressing issues? And finally, is there room for a response from the leader? Have you allowed for this conversation to be a dialogue or simply a presentation? Now, it's important to note that there is one example of how to prepare for a difficult conversation that revolves around values and the culture of an organization. The larger point is preparation. Consider every step to allow for potential success and be aware of the difficulties that followers have when determining how best to approach these type of values-based conversations.